Warnings of racism at Scotland Yard have fallen on deaf ears for more than a decade. That's according to a superintendent at Scotland Yard. And tonight, Channel 4 News can reveal that out of 120 officers found guilty of racism in the force since 1999, only one has actually been dismissed. Today, the Police Service of Northern Ireland also suspended 4 officers over claims that they sent racist and sectarian text messages. Here's Kieran Jenkins.
The UK's biggest police force has a nasty habit it cannot seem to kick. 10 allegations of racism at the Metropolitan Police, now referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Claims of racist assaults in broad daylight and behind closed doors in police cells. Of the 10 sets of racism allegations referred by the Metropolitan Police to the IPCC, 3 of them come from this one London borough. And people here in Newham may well be asking, if somebody can be sent to jail for posting racist comments on Twitter these days, then why not the same for Metropolitan Police officers, especially when they've been found by their own force to be guilty of racist behaviour? Behaviour the Met was told to stamp out after bungling the Stephen Lawrence murder inquiry. The landmark Macpherson report held up by his family as hope for change. The force branded institutionally racist. 13 years on, Channel 4 News can reveal exactly how many racist police officers have been rooted out. Between 1999 and 2011, 120 police officers at the Met were found guilty of racist behaviour. Of these, 21 received some kind of sanction, most commonly a fine. 6 were forced to resign, but just 1 police officer of the 120 was dismissed. And in Newham, East London, a call for far tougher penalties.
My concern is that there should not be racist police officers, and if police officers are found to be racist, they shouldn't be police officers any longer. We can't afford to have that kind of behaviour in our police.
1 dismissal, though, in 12 years out of 120 cases doesn't really suggest that it is being tackled properly.
No, that's a worrying figure.
But it's not just London's police force worrying about racism. The Police Service of Northern Ireland today suspended 4 officers over racist and sectarian text messages. At Scotland Yard, they say there's no room for racism in the force. So does that mean that this time heads will roll?
Kieran Jenkins there. Well, I'm joined now here in the studio by Leroy Logan, who's a past chairman and spokesman for the Black Police Association. Mr. Logan, thanks for being with us. What is it with the police? I mean, do the police have a problem with racism, or do they just reflect wider society, which is perhaps more racist than we might care to believe?
I think we can legislate people's behaviour, but attitudes, that's questionable. So we need to recognise that people do have preferences which can lead to prejudice, unless they really check with themselves to make sure that their professional ability is not influenced by that. But, as you say, we are from society, but as professionals, we need to be setting a high standard.
Well, let's talk about those figures that this programme's come up with. What, 12, 13 odd years since Macpherson's report. In those years, 120 officers found guilty of racism and racist offences, just 1 dismissed. Now, I'm not suggesting it should be a dismissal offence automatically, but it does tell us something, doesn't it?
Well, I think it really needs to be looked at very carefully around the whole misconduct and discipline procedure, how issues are being assessed, cases being assessed by the CPS and the IPCC, because I think the spotlight is not just on the police service. Obviously, the CPS and the wider justice system needs to be looked at, because...
Do I sense you think they're not taking it seriously enough?
I don't think that they've been held to account as they should be, because when you look at the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, after that there was the Stephen Lawrence steering group, chaired by Jack Straw, and that was passed on to Charles Clarke, and he decided to get rid of that steering group. And Jackie Smith didn't bring it in.
No,
but what it was, they were able to bring in the Stephen Lawrence recommendations that held chief constables to account, length and breadth of the country, to have the performance indicators, to have the rigour and grip to root out any sort of racist officers. So race and equality was high on the agenda. After the Stephen Lawrence steering group was disbanded, race came off the agenda.
But you say race is off the agenda. Most people, or many people watching this, I'm sure, would say, you know, we talk of little else, and we've had the whole Stephen Lawrence thing. You've got a spike, indeed, in the number of police officers being investigated, as I understand it, for precisely racism offences. It's hardly off the agenda, but it still keeps cropping up.
Well, you see it in football. You know, look at what's happening with the footballers. And in fact, we've seen how someone had the audacity to send a racist tweet around Fabrice Muamba. It is in society. And in fact, that young man got 56 days custodial. And I think to myself, well, if you compare that with officers being caught using racist language on audio footage, well, that means that we need to be consistent. And so this takes into account how the CPS are looking at things. We have to recognise that the real challenge for equality is constant vigilance, constant challenge and constant action. We can't be complacent on this. We've got to keep race on the agenda and make sure it's the length and breadth of all public sector organisations.
Leroy, thanks very much for being with us.